She was 10 years old, walking to school alone for the first time. A 5-minute trip that turned into 8 years of captivity. Locked behind a trapdoor in a concrete cell no one knew existed, Natascha Kampusch vanished into a nightmare. Beaten, brainwashed, and told the outside world would explode if she escaped. But one day, she ran. This isn't fiction. This is survival. This is Natascha's story.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dead or Survive. I am your host, Rob Riches.
I'm your other host, Cheryl Riches.
Early morning edition.
Yes, we don't usually do this. All right, should we do this?
We shall. Do you have a story?
I do.
You don't have a drink, though.
I don't have a drink.
You're not going to make it
You're really
through.
concerned about it.
Well, because I think the drink actually makes you more normal. Like you're sitting over here looking like a dork right now with what you're wearing.
I'm cozy. Nobody can see me.
She looks like a dork. She's got socks pulled up to her knees.
My feet were cold.
But yes, she's wearing a t-shirt. Don't put on a sweater.
Anyways, I'm going to tell you a story.
Okay, I'll listen.
I'm going to tell you about Natascha Kampusch.
Well then, chop chop, lollipop. You almost let me didn't put something in there.
Well, you were slow. You had to get on it. Okay. Natascha Maria Kampusch was born
Kampusch?
February 17th, 1988. She was raised by her mother Brigitte and her father Ludwig Koch in Vienna, Austria.
We were born the same year.
You were not.
Oh, that's right. I was 89.
She grew up in the public housing projects in Austria. I still think that's got to be okay, but I don't know Austria, so what do I know? Anyways, she was on the outskirts of the city. The neighborhood was filled with alcoholics and jaded adults, including her parents. Natascha was used to seeing strange and disturbed people hanging around in her neighborhood. When Natascha was 10, her parents were going through divorce. They had been separated for a few years, and Natascha spent time with both of them. Her parents would slap and insult her. Not a good start. It was taking a toll on the little girl, and she was not in a good frame of mind.
You think?
Right.
You mean being slapped around doesn't make you happy?
Yeah. And thinking that, like, seeing all those weirdos hanging around, that was normal.
Well, weirdos are okay hanging out with you.
Okay, so but at the age of 10, she had developed compulsive eating habits, and she was struggling with depression and loneliness, and she longed for a way to break free. At 10, she dreamed of having a job and starting her own life. On March 2nd, 1998, Natascha was allowed to walk to school by herself for the very first time. At one point, she actually daydreamed about throwing herself in front of a car. Sorry.
You know what's going on in your story at all?
I
hear a lot of stories going on.
But she tried to look at it as the first step of her goal of self-sufficiency. However, it marked the beginning of an awful nightmare. At some point during her brief 5-minute walk from home to school, Natascha Kampusch was abducted from the street by a communications technician named Wolfgang Přiklopil. Instantly, Kampusch's survival instincts sprang into action. She began to ask her captor questions such as, "What shoe size do you wear? How old was he? Was he married with children? Why didn't he have any children?" She knew from watching true crime TV, that she needed to get as much information about this criminal as possible. He drove her to this home in a prosperous suburb called Strasshof. I'm really sorry, Austrians. I'm trying.
I don't think she is.
It was 15 miles north of Vienna, and he carried her into a tiny cellar room he'd evidently spent a long time preparing. It was beneath a trapdoor in the garage, down some stairs, through a hollowed-out concrete wall, hidden on the other side of a small metal hatch, concealed by a cupboard.
Like,
right?
Is everybody that kidnaps people engineers?
This guy actually was. So there's that, but
because
no,
but I know, but think about it. Think about this. Every time it's always like a hidden bedroom built underneath the house, or a bunker in the backyard that nobody knew was there.
Yeah. Well, this one, it was so secretive and heavily fortified that it took almost an hour to get in. That's a lot of work every time he needed to go in there, and almost an hour to go through all these little. Because even the metal hatch, you couldn't it was like the little springs or whatever that came out. They were concealed inside the concrete.
I know. And he's kidnapping children, has all that. And I have a guy at work that can't even build a sealer lifter.
Are you going after somebody personally right now?
Yes, I am. And I hope he listens and he knows who he is.
Okay.
It's a little lifter.
Anyways,
since March.
He didn't build this. It was originally built by his grandfather as a fallout shelter.
That's what the guy at work said.
I don't think it was. The room, that guy you're talking about is going to be on his way to Japan soon, so he definitely won't get it done. I'll tell you about that later. Anyways.
He better get it done. Or he ain't going.
The room measured 5 by 5 meters, was a stark, soundproofed, lacked windows, and was constantly filled with the irritating hum of a plastic ventilator fan. When he attempted to take away her school bag, she requested to keep it. Přiklopil's response was surprising. You could have hidden a transmitter, he said, and you could use it to call for help. So he's a little off, because it would be a bit unusual for a 10-year-old to have a transmitter in their school bag. But
didn't all kids carry one of those?
I guess now they're called cell phones.
Correct.
But this was in 1998.
I thought it was 88.
No, she was born in 88.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Natascha says she was used to grown-ups doing and saying strange things she didn't understand, so she didn't think that much of it. In an act of self-preservation, Natascha's mind reverted to a 4 or 5-year-old. She was desperate for some normalcy. She said, when the kidnapper came back to the cell, I asked him to stay with me, put me to bed properly, and read me a bedtime story. I even asked him for a goodnight kiss, like my mother would give me. Anything to preserve the illusion of normalcy. Normalcy. Why does it say normality? I just can't speak. All of which he cheerfully did. She was terrified that he would kill her. In the beginning, the relationship was relatively uncomplicated, or as uncomplicated as things can be when one person is confined in a dungeon and the other has to maintain the entire complex secret from the outside world, including his mother and his best friend. I'm going to botch this.
Well, that's par for the course anyways.
Ernst Holzapfel. I tried. Both of whom regularly visited the house. He bought her fancy croissants and expensive toys like train sets. However, as time passed, his gifts became less considerate. He started giving her gifts like mouthwash and Scotch tape. Nevertheless, she found joy in receiving those gifts. Any present, even something as simple as orange juice, brought her happiness. He claimed to be an Egyptian god, and she decided that the simplest course of action would be...
Was he the hippo?
No. I know what that was. What show was that where he was the hippo god? Anyways, doesn't matter.
You asked me a question, then you don't even let me answer?
What was it?
Moon Knight.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Maybe he was the hippo. I don't know. He just claims to be an Egyptian god. She decided that the simplest course of action would be to play along with his delusion. She insisted that Natascha address him as maestro or my lord. He would bathe her and she would imagine she was at the spa. When he provided her with food, she imagined him as a gentleman, believing that he was being chivalrous in his actions. Meanwhile, a frantic search had initiated to locate Natascha when she failed to arrive at school or come home. Although it took 2 days to start an investigation, at first they assumed that Natascha had run away. Yep, the 10-year-old ran away and nobody knows where she is, but anyways, I digress.
If she's being beaten and slapped around,
I guess. But that shouldn't be anybody's first assumption when there's a child missing.
You're correct.
A 12-year-old witness reported having seen her being dragged into a white minibus by 2 men, although Natascha says there was only Wolfgang. A massive police effort followed in which 776 minivans were examined. Wolfgang Přiklopil was even considered an early suspect, but the police dismissed him because they didn't consider the mild-mannered 35-year-old to appear as a monster. Speculations arose of child pornography rings or organ theft, leading officials to also investigate possible links to the crimes of a French serial killer named Michael Fourniret.
Are you going to get anything right today?
Michael Fourniret.
See what I told you guys when she doesn't have her drink?
Michael Fourniret.
Just because you put a phony accent on it doesn't mean you said it right.
I bet you I did. Natascha had carried her passport with her when she left, as she had been on a family trip to Hungary a few days before, so the police extended the search abroad. As she entered her early teenage years, because at this point years have passed.
Good.
Yeah. She found it increasingly challenging to continue playing a compliant role in his psychotic delusions. She began to resist with small acts of rebellion. For example, she adamantly refused to address him as maestro. It was a bit too bizarre and a step too far for her. She compared it to preschoolers announcing that they were the king and everybody else had to do what they said. And so now it was Přiklopil's turn to adjust to a new situation. His captive no longer was a compliant plaything. Unfortunately, he chose a solution that involved breaking her entirely and then attempting to reshape her according to his will. He aimed to demonstrate increasingly that he was more powerful than she was and that she was expected to obey unquestioningly. He began persistently and violently beating her up. He beat her up to 200 times a week.
Jesus.
Right. He denied her food, and he kept her isolated in the darkness. He built an intercom system that allowed him to stay awake throughout the night, shouting insults at her from his bedroom upstairs. When they ate together, he always gave himself a bigger portion and gave her very little. He began to see her as a person who could do a lot of manual labor, so he started bringing her upstairs to clean the house. She was forced to clean the house half naked and lower her gaze. She was allowed to speak only when spoken to, or he'd beat her up. And he was an over-the-top clean freak. Every tile had to sparkle. Every surface had to be perfect. If it wasn't, he would beat her. She had to wear gloves, and he shaved her head and burned her hair. Partially because he didn't want the DNA evidence, but mostly because finding a hair or a fingerprint would gross him out. When she was allowed outside her cell and into the house, it was under constant threats from Přiklopil, who claimed that the doors were rigged with explosives and that if she tried to escape, he would murder her and the neighbors.
What does she care about the neighbors?
Well, I guess she doesn't want that on her head.
Well, she's never met him.
Plus, he also said he was going to murder her, too, so there's that.
Well, that much.
Natascha never talked a lot about the sexual abuse, although it happened. It was probably too hard of a topic for her to go into. But what she did say is that it was minor. At the outset, she remembered that he would bind her to his bed, but even then, all he wanted to do was cuddle. She attributes her survival to an incident that occurred when she was 12 years old. With the absence of stable, rational adults in her life, she made the decision to become her own source of guidance and maturity. In a vivid vision, her 18-year-old self appeared to her and made a promise. I will get you out of here, I promise you. Right now you are too small, but when you turn 18, I will overcome the kidnapper and liberate you from your captivity. The beatings persisted over the next 6 years. At times, the only way to avoid them was to repeatedly, almost mockingly, start punching herself in the face until he begged her to stop. She also made suicide attempts. At the age of 14, she tried to cut her wrists with a knitting needle. However, there were also moments of warmth. Occasionally, he would apologize to her, give her gifts, and share his dream about their life together. So he's like an abusive husband almost. She believes that he placed trust in her. He could share his thoughts and show his real mental state through their interactions. She thinks he aimed to establish his own ideal world with someone dedicated solely to him. So she thinks that he kidnapped her to start her from the ground from the 10-year-old and start forming her so that one day he would have his perfect wife. His vision was for her to serve as a beautiful Aryan servant and devoted companion. Yes, I said Aryan because he loved Hitler and claimed that the Jews were responsible for 9/11. He dyed her hair blonde, and after persuading her that any escape attempt would result in the death of both her and him, along with potential harm to many bystanders, he took her skiing. The Aryan girl skiing down a hill at his side. In fact, he took her on a total of 13 trips. These day trips included visits to a hardware store and a pharmacy, but mostly consisted of going to empty rental apartments he was renovating for his friend Ernst, and he made her do the manual work. She was too terrified to attempt an escape or say anything to the various strangers she encountered, including the pharmacist. Oh, and they got pulled over at a routine police blockade, and the policeman who stopped the car just let them go through. She was too afraid to say anything to him.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a picture or recognizes or does anything.
Right. Well, it's been years. On her 18th birthday, she confronted him and said, "You created a situation in which only one of us can survive." She said, "I am really grateful to you for not killing me and for taking such good care of me. That is very nice of you, but you can't force me to stay with you. I am my own person with my own needs. The situation must come to an end." And then she closed her eyes, expecting a beating. but it didn't come. Instead, she opened them to see him looking sad and defeated. He might have realized that she had reached the limits of her endurance. He had pushed her to the edge, leaving her with no energy left, but in a way that had strengthened her. He had nothing to counter her with. She had nothing left to lose. After a few weeks, after Natascha's 18th birthday, Přiklopil was trying to sell his car. He was forcing Natascha to clean it in the yard, and he got a phone call from a potential buyer. Usually, he would never let Natascha out of his sight while outdoors, but because she was vacuuming, he couldn't hear over the noise, so he stepped away. And she quietly approached the gate. With luck on her side, it was unlocked. She could hardly breathe. She was filled with adrenaline, but her arms and legs felt paralyzed. Then she screamed at herself internally, "This is your chance. Run, damn it, run." And she began to run, filled with desperation. She begged passersby for help, but they ignored her. Finally, she found someone who was willing to call the police. Natascha figures that he probably knew she would escape one day, and part of him might have wished that it would happen. Certainly, it must have become an overwhelming burden for him, the stress of maintaining the secret of having a captive. After Natascha escaped, Wolfgang went to his friend Ernst, and during a 3-hour drive around Vienna, he confessed everything. "I am a kidnapper and a rapist," he admitted to him. Afterwards, Přiklopil lay down on some railway tracks until a train ran over his head.
Well, at least he got a punishment he deserved.
Yeah, it just was too fast. Ernst said later, "I am stunned by the crime. I would never believe that my former business partner could do something so horrific. Wolfgang was always friendly and helpful, never wanted to be in the foreground, and never imposed himself. He was thrifty but never stingy." It had been 8 years since Natascha had been kidnapped. But when Natascha escaped, she was so underfed and gaunt that she only weighed 6 pounds more than the day that she was kidnapped as a 10-year-old.
Jesus.
Yeah. That's nuts. She had escaped the clutches of a monster. When she heard of his death, she reportedly broke down crying and insisted on seeing his dead body. Natascha described Přiklopil as having symptoms of schizophrenia and a split personality. An astonished and captivated public eagerly awaited her first words. But her first words were complicated. She wrote a letter to the media that read, this is a little long, but I want to give you the state of mind that she was in when she got out. Dear journalists, reporters, and people of the world, I realized quite early what a strong impression the news of my captivity has made on people, but I ask you for understanding in satisfying the tremendous interest of the public. I realize how shocking and worrying the thoughts about my time in prison must be, and that something like this could even be possible. I also realize there is a certain amount of curiosity and a desire to know more about the circumstances in which I lived. But at the same time, I want to make it clear that I don't want to answer any details about my intimate personal matters, and I am not prepared to take steps to ensure this interest. I am prepared, to take steps to ensure this interest does not get out of control. My personal space, my room was equipped with everything I would need, and I made it my home, and it was not meant to be shown to the public. My daily life, this was carefully regulated. Mostly it started with joint breakfast. He was anyway not working most of the time. There was housework, reading, television, talking, cooking. That's all there was, year in and year out, and always tied in with the fear of being lonely. On my relationship, he was not my master. I was just as strong as him, but he would, symbolically speaking, sometimes be my support and sometimes be the person who kicked me. But with me, he had picked the wrong person, and we both knew that. He did the kidnapping alone and prepared everything in advance. After that, we furnished the room together, and it was not 1.6 meters high, so I guess it was short. I also did not cry after I made my escape. There was no reason to cry. In my eyes, his death was not necessary. It would not be the end of the world if he had simply been given a prison sentence. He has been a big part of my life, and as a result, I do feel I am sort of mourning for him. It is true that my youth was different to the youths of others, but in principle, I don't feel I missed anything. On the contrary, there are certain things I avoided, having nothing to do with smoking or drinking to start off with, and I didn't meet the wrong friends. Message to the media. The one thing I would appeal to you from the press is a stop to the insulting reports, the misinterpretations of reality, the commentaries that claim to know better than the lack of respect for me. At the moment, I feel very well in the place where I am staying, although perhaps I feel a little bit too controlled. I am the one who has decided only to have telephone contact with my family. I'm also the one who will decide when I have contact with journalists. On my escape, it happened as I was cleaning the car in the garden. I saw that he had walked away during the vacuum cleaning. That was my chance. I dropped the vacuum cleaner and I left it running. I also want to stress I never called him master, although he demanded it. I think that's what he wanted, to be named like that, but he never meant it, really. I have a lawyer that discusses the law with me. The youth lawyer, Monica Pinteris, has my trust together with Dr. Friedrich and Dr. Berger, both top Austrian youth psychiatrists with whom I feel I can speak. The investigation team, led by Mr. Frank Frühstück.
Here we go again.
Were very good to me, and
you insulted an entire country today.
I really tried not to, and I greeted them warmly, although they were a bit too curious, but that is, after all, their job. Intimate questions. Everybody wants to ask intimate questions, but these have nothing to do with anybody else. It may be one day I speak to my therapist about it, and maybe not. At the end of the day, my private life is mine alone. And then she's referring to Mr. H. It's Ernst. Should not feel guilty. It was Wolfgang's own decision to throw himself in front of a train. I also feel sympathy for the mother of Wolfgang. I can put myself in her position, and I feel with her and have understanding. We both are thinking of him. I want to thank all the people who have taken part in my fate, but please let me have some peace in the immediate future. I hope that Dr. Friedrich will be able to use this letter to make it clear. There are many people caring for me now. Please let me have my time until I can talk for myself. Natascha Kampusch. So she kind of, I don't know, what did you think, that letter? She kind of like was defending him, right?
Yeah, I guess defending him a little bit, but also saying back off, people.
Yeah, like totally back off.
Well, that's the problem, right? Something happens, and of course, everybody in the media wants to talk to you. You don't get time to digest it
true.
Or go through it yourself, right?
Yeah.
And some stuff you don't want to touch on.
Yeah, it's true. Like, why does everybody need to know what happened to her?
I don't tell everybody about all the captivity that I go through with you.
Anyways,
the beatings.
The public went wild. The initial admiration from the public transferred into disgust and confusion, and she started receiving hate mail. She also got some odd offers of help. Like, I think some people were trying to take advantage of her state of mind. So, like this one guy who sent her a letter that said, "You could live with me and help with the housework. I'm offering board, wages, and lodging. Although I'm married, I'm sure we'll find an arrangement." Like, gross. However, the offer ceased when she refused to conform to the role of victim, a vulnerable girl in need of assistance. Instead, she attempted to explain to interviewers the complexities of their relationship. Since that wasn't the narrative that people wanted to hear, they dismissed her as suffering from Stockholm Syndrome, which I kind of still think, who am I to say, but it kind of sounds like it to me. She was quoted as saying, "I find it very natural that you would adapt yourself to identify with your kidnapper, especially if you spend a great deal of time with that person. It's not empathy. It's about empathy and communication, looking for normality within the framework of a crime. And it's not a syndrome. It's a survival strategy." But people get annoyed when I say this. Some say I should be locked up again, that it isn't really special to have been locked up like that because I liked it and it was good for me. Because people suck.
People suck.
People suck. Right after her escape, she was inundated with requests for interviews and exclusives, some of which she agreed to and subsequently donated the earnings to women in Africa and Mexico. She also agreed to interviews in exchange for housing and educational support, as well as a long-term job offer. So that's good.
Yeah, well, and she probably she only had a grade 10 education, or she was only 10 years old,
yeah,
right? So
she had zero education. She had grade school. Since then, Natascha has bought the house where she was imprisoned in a windowless cellar for more than 8 years. When she was 20, she decided to buy it rather than see it vandalized or torn down to make way for new houses. And to prevent it from becoming a shrine for crazy fans, she had the cellar that she was kept in filled in. Natascha continued to visit the house, spending a couple nights a week there, which is odd.
Odd? That's what you're going to say about that? It was odd? It was odd that you bought the house that you were kidnapped in?
I think it's odd. I thought, I don't know. Who am I? Like I said, I don't know. I'm not in her mind, but I feel like if this happened to me, I would burn that bitch down. Not me. Everybody deals with things differently. She says she finds her sort of fame bothersome and disturbing. She had dreamed of becoming famous when she escaped, but thought it would be a more positive experience. After her escape, Natascha's own mother was investigated. She was accused of taking part in the abduction to conceal her daughter's involvement in child sex abuse. Martin Wabel, a former Austrian judge and politician who became involved in the investigating shortly after she was kidnapped, believed that Brigitte Cerny was behind her daughter's disappearance. He repeatedly said that Mrs. Cerny knew Přiklopil. Apparently, Natascha's parents and Wolfgang would often go to the same bar, and they would bring Natascha. So they didn't actually have any interactions in the bar, but they were both present there at the same time. He alleged that Mrs. Cerny may have been involved in organizing her daughter's disappearance in an attempt to conceal the fact that Natascha was subjected to abuse and photographed in sexually provocative poses. So they found some really questionable photographs.
With her parents?
Well, no, not with her parents, but she was wearing strange things.
But what I'm saying is her parents had that stuff? Oh.
Yeah. He also raised the possibility that she might have been a victim of pedophiles. Mrs. Cerny obtained a court injunction against Mr. Wobble, prohibiting from making such allegations against her. She has consistently denied any involvement in her own daughter's abduction.
Yeah, she probably lost money.
Yeah.
By the sounds of it.
Questioned about the possibility after her escape, Natascha said, "My mother told me that she had nothing to do with Přiklopil. I am 100% certain that she was not lying." And then a couple years later, the whole Elizabeth Fritzl story came out, and it shocked Natascha. So, do you remember?
Nope.
He's the one that was locked in a cellar by her father and had 7 children.
Oh, I do remember.
That was also in Austria, and it also happened just after. Like, she was locked up at the same time as Natascha. So that was shocking to Natascha, and it hit a little too close to home because it was like happening at the same time. I guess this was a big problem in Austria for a while. For a little while, Natascha became a talk show host. Strange, but she did it. And when she was in prison, she admired the interviewers she would hear on the radio. Because she was dealing with Přiklopil, she had learned how to become a very good listener. But ultimately, she decided she wanted to become a psychologist. Since her escape, she's reestablished contact with her family, but she admits she finds it hard to trust people. And she has published a book called 3096 Days, and a movie has been made about her ordeal. She has also followed up with a second book titled 10 Years of Freedom. And in that book, it talks about, it was her third book that she came out with.
You don't know this story at all. Yeah, I've decided you don't know.
She wrote a third book, and in that book she talks about all the cyberbullying that she's had since she was escaped, and like the public got a hold of her story. They started cyberbullying her, and she'd get hurtful comments from people telling her to just die, questioning her story, and asking why she didn't escape from her kidnapper sooner. The online harassment became so severe that she was reluctant to leave her home.
Jesus.
Yeah. Since her escape, she said she has worked on her relationships with her sister and her mother and has found some solace in horseback riding. And that is Natascha Kampusch. Lots of ups and downs? Lots of downs.
Yeah, lots of downs, but
very little ups.
But Jesus, even after she got more abuse after being rescued.
I know. Like, why do people suck so much? How about you don't know, so try not to throw your hate around. I don't know.
Oh, because everybody thinks they're an expert. That's why they have the internet.
I guess. Anyways.
I mean, look at us. We pretend to be hosts of a show.
We pretend to be podcasters. All right. I'm going to give you an up now.
What? No. That was your story.
You get a superhero of the day.
It better be Batman.
It could be. I don't know, but it's not.
It could be, but it's not. I don't know, but it's not. So you do know. You don't know anything anymore. We're not doing this in the morning anymore.
It was a sunny afternoon in June of 2022 when Anthony Perry stepped off the train at Chicago's 69th Street station.
Chicago train number 9 going down the gummy line. Isn't that how it goes?
No, it's Chicago line. I can't remember.
Okay, go on with your superhero story.
The 20-year-old who worked nights in a grocery store was on his way to see his grandfather so they could go look at a car Perry was thinking about buying. On the platform, 2 men were throwing punches. Then the unthinkable happened. The pair tumbled over the edge and onto the tracks. One man ended up on his back, fending off blows. Suddenly, he started bucking and convulsing. The aggressor, straddling him, leaped backwards, bounded back up onto the platform, and disappeared. The man had fallen atop the third rail, the conduit for the 600 volts of electricity that power Chicago's L trains.
600 volts?
Yes. As Perry and other horrified onlookers watched, he twitched grotesquely as a current surged through his body, his head bouncing up and down off the tracks. "Help him," a woman wailed. "Someone, please help." Perry couldn't just stand there and watch.
Why didn't the woman help?
Right? I don't know.
Why did somebody else got to do it?
Perry couldn't just stand there and watch. He sat at the edge of the platform and eased himself down, assuming that every rail between him and the man was electrified. Perry took a few quick bounds, knee-highing it as he'd done in high school football, until he was standing over the victim. The guy looked dead, his body still thrashing rhythmically with the electricity pulsed, his head banging against a steel rail. Perry wondered how he was going to escape the situation he'd just pulled himself into. Straddling the deadly rail, about to lay hands on the body coursing with electricity, the train he'd just gotten off was idling, thankfully, but had the conductor seen him? Would it start up again? Putting his trust in God, Perry reached down and grasped the victim's wrist. Instantly, he felt a blast of electric shock shoot through his body.
Yeah. You know, this is why farm life is good. You learn from an electric fence not to do that.
Perry flinched and jumped back. He reached down a second time and was shocked again.
Oh, because the first time was just a fluke.
But still, what are you going to do? You're going to just let this guy fry? By the third time, he seized the man's wrist and forearm and, braving the shock, yanked. The guy's body slid briefly along the third rail, coming to a rest on the gravel on the outer edge of the tracks beside a concrete barricade. The man was breathing, but raggedly. Something wasn't right. "Give him chest compressions," yelled probably the same woman on the platform wearing scrubs. Perry was no expert, but for a few moments he worked on the man's heart until the victim began convulsing. Once again, Perry grabbed him, keeping him from flailing back onto the third rail or smashing his head onto the concrete. Then he heard a commotion behind him. Paramedics and firefighters had arrived. They told the authorities to cut the circuit, deactivating the third rail. Perry let the professionals take over, his heart still racing from the adrenaline and the electric shocks. He climbed back onto the platform, grabbed his things, and continued to his grandfather's as planned. They went to look at the car that he wanted to buy, but it had been sold.
What?
Yeah. The evening news reported the incident, crediting an anonymous hero with saving the victim's life. After a friend outed him to the media, Perry became the toast of Chicago. Just days after the incident, a local philanthropist rewarded him with a car. Perry was then recruited by the Chicago Fire Department and is now training to be an EMT. Chicago Fire.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the story? That's it?
That's the whole story. Yeah.
He got a car.
He got a car. He saved a man's life. How about that?
And getting electrocuted twice.
And now he's on Chicago Fire.
Well, good for him.
Yeah.
I really love the part, though, where the lady's like, somebody help him. Somebody. You're somebody. Oh, no, somebody else.
Not me, somebody else. I don't want to get shocked.
Yep. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. 2 stories.
What do you got?
I got a couple stories.
All right.
But right now, we got to ask people. This is where we beg people.
This is the begging bit.
Please like, subscribe,
yeah,
or comment.
We need some new subscribers. Yeah. Gimme.
Our subscribers are...
They're not going anywhere. They're just not increasing all that much.
We appreciate everybody we got, but we're running a little flat.
Yeah.
This happens when we take the summer off. We know that, but we also know if we kept doing it through the summer, you get tired of hearing our voices.
Yeah, probably. Maybe.
Well, yours anyways.
No, not mine.
Okay. And if you'd like to send an email and let us know what you think of the podcast, or if there's anything you're saying wrong, we do listen. We do read what you say. That's why I don't scream anymore, and we changed mics.
Oh, this is why I yell at you when you scream.
You can send that email to
deadersurvivepodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you very much. And now it's the moment of the podcast that everybody waits for.
It is. It's the part I wait for, because it's the part where I sit back and chill.
I think you sat back and chilled through your whole story. You didn't even know it.
Did you?
Ladies and gentlemen, love hurts.
Love hurts.
I knew I was going to get that. I even wrote in here, Cheryl will sing it. 2 students from Taiwan met up one night to have some appetizers and drinks. They talked about classes, they talked about school, and then they started to talk about girls.
Okay.
Girls.
Getting interesting.
The end of all ends.
Nope.
The species that rocks people and their foundation. Because they are the crazy ones.
No, that's so not true.
However, when they're talking about this, they found out that they liked the same girl on campus.
Oh, that's not good.
Well, things got heated, of course, and they decided to have a contest because she's property, you know.
I'm sure if she heard about this, she would have been like, oh yeah, whoever wins, I'm going to go with.
That's right. And they decided to have a contest to see who could pursue the girl. So they decided a nice, safe game of rock, paper, scissors would be great. They would do the best 2 out of 3.
Okay, that doesn't seem like usually it's, I'm going to be the manliest man and I'm going to go throw a rock really far or something.
Yeah, that's not what they did. They didn't do that. That's what they should have done. But what they did, because men are idiots and have become even more idiots when it comes to women, they decided to have a joust.
Come on.
A joust.
What year is this?
It was, I don't know, actually.
Like 1600s?
No, how to be, because the way they do the joust on scooters.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, actually, the joust becomes more like a game of chicken.
Okay.
So what they decided is they both got on each other, each one of them got on a scooter, and whoever turned away first was not allowed to pursue the girl. They had no safety equipment, no helmets, no nothing.
What were they using?
What do you mean?
Like for the jousting? They
didn't joust. That's what I'm saying. They decided not to joust, and they were going to play chicken.
Okay.
Do you listen to my stories?
You said joust.
I said they were going to joust, and then they decided they went to chicken.
Okay. All right. So they're just going to drive in.
I don't think you listen.
I do listen.
I don't think you do.
You
just asked me. I just missed
something
because I wasn't listening. This is why I scream.
So don't scream into the mic. So they're just going to drive into each other.
That's basically what happened.
Okay.
They both got on their scooters at 50 kilometers an hour. Neither one of them turned away and smashed into each other, killing each other.
Both of them died.
Both died.
And the woman was like, I dodged a bullet there.
And after that, the girl that they were arguing about was talked to and said she didn't like any of them either.
Oh my God.
So maybe if they would have just went and said, asked her out or something, or, did something.
But
they didn't.
Crazy. That's nuts.
Right? Over a woman. All right. On to story number 2. This is something I think you can relate to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Losing your keys or getting locked out of the house. Has that happened before, honey?
Yes, when the dogs locked me out.
So my wife...
I think we told this story.
Did we tell this story already?
We did. Yeah.
You were out?
Yeah, when I was locked out in the middle of the biggest storm we'd had all winter. Yeah.
And what other time? When you broke into our son's first apartment, Quinn?
Yeah.
And you went through the window?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But I saved the day. I was the hero.
Well, those all went a lot better than this guy. So in 2004, Wolfberg.
Oh, it was Austria.
Johnny returned home and he was smashed, like inebriated, drunk as all can be drunk.
Nice.
He was out drinking some Austrian beer. So he got to his house and tried to get in, but couldn't find his keys. But he wasn't worried about it. As he remembered, his kitchen window was open. This window was not it wasn't like a normal slide up window. It was one of those windows that kind of kicked out from the bottom and stayed out. And then the top was like fastened.
Escape window almost.
Yeah, almost like that. Like one of those type of windows. Johnny crawled in. He got his head in most of the way and his upper body and torso through, or torso, whatever way you want to say it. Then he got his feet off the ground and he was so drunk that he could not coordinate his feet to push himself in. So he's just dangling now with his feet hanging out.
Okay, so far it's hilarious.
And while he's struggling to do all this, he's going through the kitchen window, remember? And he turns the water on in his kitchen sink. And
he drowned himself.
And he keeps fighting and fighting for a while until he finally gets exhausted, falls asleep, his head into the sink where he drowns.
Wow, that's like the strangest drowning story I've ever heard.
The next day, the police are called because they see this body hanging out of the window.
Like, wait, how would they piece that all together? How do you get there? Like, you would automatically think that he was murdered by somebody.
Would you, though? If there was nobody in the house, he lived alone?
I don't know. Like, it's not.
Just shoved him through a window halfway through, walked into the house, turned on the kitchen sink, drowned him in that while he was through a window and went back out and locked the door? That's logic. Yeah, you're right. He was murdered.
My first impression would be like, this dude got murdered. Because my first impression would certainly not be, he got stuck in the window, couldn't get free, and drowned himself.
Well, it's even worse because as they were taking him out, they found that he got stuck on the keys in his pocket. And that's why his pants wouldn't go through.
Oh, no.
That's what was holding him back, was the keys in his pocket, stuck against
terrible.
the window. That's why I love my Darwins. And for the last one, back in 2008, a man from Florida, because of course, was out riding his motorcycle because it's warm in Florida and you can do that.
Yeah, even now, even in a month. Even in
Yes.
3 months.
Anyways, he came to a drawbridge. So what do we all do when a drawbridge comes
Stop.
and you're on a motorcycle?
Stop.
You go faster to jump it.
No.
Yep. But engineers knew that there were stupid people out there and men that own motorcycles, so they would put up what's called barricades,
Okay.
or the big crossing arms that come
Right.
down. So as Johnny took off on his motorcycle to jump the drawbridge, the barricades or cross arms came down, smacked him, threw him off the bridge, and he hit the water and died.
Wow, those are powerful barricades.
Yes, and he was probably doing a pretty good clip.
Yeah.
Right? However, the motorcycle kept going with the throttle locked, and it made the jump. So it's got a good story because the motorcycle lived.
Oh, no.
Anyways, those are my Darwin Awards.
They were good ones. I like them.
And now it's time for the dad joke to
dad
end the podcast.
All right.
Are you ready for this one?
I am, yep.
What kind of tree fits in your hand?
A palm tree.
You are correct.
I like it when I get them.
I gave you an easy one. I knew it was going to be a morning record. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the show. As always, thank you for being with us. It is appreciated, and we'll speak to you again next week.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Bye.